Welcome, family and friends, as we celebrate our beloved class of 2020 in this unconventional way. Our celebration is juxtaposed against a backdrop of a world in upheaval, and we believe that our graduates would be best honored by starting out with a recognition of the tragic circumstances surrounding the death of George Floyd and countless other Black Americans as the United States continues to grapple with the ongoing plague of structural racism. As we prepare for our ceremony, I hope that you will join me in offering a commitment to these graduates that they will not be alone in solving these societal problems, and that our loving continued support will bolster them as they forge ahead to change our world for the better. Please join me in a moment of silence as we offer our remembrance and commitment. Thank you. As we get started in our program, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the love and support that has already been offered to these young adults by all of you as they work toward this achievement. We saw the grandparents in the pickup line, the siblings cheering them on at games, the aunts and uncles consulted on research projects. Parents, we know that it takes sacrifice to offer your children a Kirby education, and I want to offer you my deepest thanks for your partnership as we helped your children become the best version of themselves. And from where I'm sitting, this partnership has been a raving success. To be recognized as academically achieved in this particular group is especially spectacular. I'm very excited to recognize our first student speaker of today's program, our salutatorian, Caroline Mizell.
Way back in our retreat to Mineral King in August, which feels like an eternity ago, but somehow yesterday at the same time, as all of high school now does, our hiking group undertook a rescue mission of a man named Orlando. The first sign of something wrong was when we heard someone shouting for help. It was distant and hard to place where it was coming from. In Monarch Lake, there were mountains all around us. We eventually placed the shouts to a specific mountain called Sawtooth Pass. The face was massive, and every shrub and shadow looked like it could be a person, so locating him seemed nearly impossible. Anthony used his impressive vocal cords to ask for a state and location. Maddie and I moved away from the mountain and tried to get the entire picture, and others tried to spot him closer up. Through a very inefficient and difficult shouting conversation, we learned that he was injured. Eventually, we also spotted him, and Wyatt offered to scale the mountain for his rescue. To Wyatt, this looked completely plausible, and it took a lot of coaxing from Mr. Trop to hold him back. Instead, Mr. Trop radioed base camp, who could then call a helicopter. We told Orlando not to move and that help was on the way, but he had different plans. For the first time, I was sure that the tiny speck I was seeing really was Orlando as he began moving. He was no longer listening to our request to stay put, and he told us that he thought he could get down himself. He didn't know the extent of his injuries or if the rocks he was clinging to were stable, but all we could do was watch him scoot down the mountain. Once he was most of the way, our guide Julia hiked up to him, gave him water, and brought him down to safety. He was a frat bro looking guy in his mid-20s with a shark tooth necklace, Ray-Bans, and cigarettes and dips sticking out of his pack. He told us he ran out of water, and instead of taking the path, he decided to cut straight down the mountain. A bad decision he had now made for the second time. His injuries consisted of a scraped thumb. The entire situation was a bit anticlimactic. We expected a man with several broken bones and a full-fledged rescue with a helicopter. But instead, his predicament was entirely self-inflicted, and he wasn't so much as injured, but scared to move. We gave him trail mix and a full Kirby water bottle. He thanked us, and he went on his way that afternoon back to the lifted Jeep he planned to drive home. As we watched him go, we hoped for a safe return before nightfall and hoped that this man would never procreate. Although anticlimactic, it gave us a real and important purpose and brought out the most genuine and heroic sides of my classmates that I had never had the opportunity to see. Wyatt was prepared to risk his life for this frat bro, Anthony put his vocal cords to good use, for once. We stayed out in the hot sun for half the day, trying to locate Orlando and see him safely down. It was an adventure, a real test of our community and decency. It was sheer proof of the type of people in our class, the kind that will move heaven and earth for a stranger, much less for each other. I would trust that if it was one of us up there, the rest of us would pull a Wyatt and try and book it right up that mountain. Like Orlando, we've been stuck up the steep mountainside of a high school and adolescence, afraid and unsure of our abilities, our decisions, and ourselves. The scrambling people doing everything to help at the bottom, baffled by our idiocy, but very happy we're alive and well, are like our teachers and families. So to them, thank you. We've called for their help and will receive it if we want, but now we have the strength to make it down on our own. At least I hope we do. And like Orlando, we've made our fair share of mistakes. Bananas have been crushed on teachers, Hot Pockets have been bought past curfew in DC, holes have been punched through drywall, boba has been door dashed to an Olsen class, smoothies have been spilled on the new study hall carpet, teachers' cars have been scraped in the parking lot, by myself included, and this is the kind of community where we leave a note. But these mistakes are now memories, and I'm thankful for every memory of our wonderful, ridiculous class. I have no idea what's going to be in store for us, but I know that we are prepared to handle a lot. I'm amazed by all your compassion and fearlessness and drive. I'm so grateful that I'm a part of this family with so many inside jokes and quotable moments that I will always remember. I can't even believe that this is the end, and it's happy and sad all at once. When the retreat was coming to a close and we hiked back down, we saw that Orlando had left a note on our van, thanking us for our help. He wrote something that now feels very applicable. After our whole ordeal, I would hate to be strangers. And then, of course, he left his Instagram username. Class of 2020, we did it. So congratulations and goodbye for now. Unless, thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Our next speaker has shaped Kirby's theater department for over 2 decades and leaves a legacy of theatrical excellence behind. Marnay will be moving with her daughter to be close to her grandchildren this summer, and she will be dearly missed. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to our very own Marnay Taylor.
Hello, everyone. I want to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to whomever it was that decided this was a good idea for me to speak to you today, because I have been in constant stress ever since I was asked to speak. So thanks a lot. You know, when I have to audition for a part in a show, especially one that I really want, that is stressful. Liv, Anthony, Jordy, Gabby, Elijah, Sahil, Charlie, and many others all know exactly what I'm talking about. But this speech was and is terrifying. Give me a script to memorize and I am good. But write the script, terrifying. Especially because my own thoughts and feelings being spoken and the fact that I'm leaving, I will cry. I will no doubt cry. I already am. Because I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad, I cry at 8th grade step-up speeches, I cry when I say goodbye to the senior actors on closing night. I cry on sad commercials. And nobody cries pretty. Nonetheless, I'm honored to speak to you all today. So I've been battling around in my head trying to figure out what to say. Everyone said, watch Oprah's speech or Obama's speech. And I was like, why would I do that to myself? Listen to the perfect speech that I would never be able to emulate. So I decided that I just have to be myself, do my thing. And that is to relate everything to theater. Since I've been the theater teacher here for the last 19 years, I'm pretty sure no one's done that yet because this is the first time I've spoken at a graduation. I've been too busy doing this. And I'm gonna miss that, so I might just throw it in the end, even though you don't need to stand up or sit down. And if you do need to stand up or get water or anything else, you can just turn your video off. All right, I'm just gonna start at the beginning. My journey in theater started before 7th grade when someone dared me to take a theater class. But if I'm being honest, I've always been a bit of a drama queen. And well, look at me now. I decided to take the dare, and what came out of it was a lifetime of joy doing something I love. So I'm here to give you some advice for your next act. First, you're going to have to audition, and you will be auditioning every day of your life. When you apply for a job, every time you meet a new roommate or get a new friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, or professor, you will be auditioning. How, you ask? Well, I can only tell you what I have learned and what I tell my students when they ask me, how do I audition and do it well? Well, you need to be prepared for that audition. And lucky you, you've been preparing every day of your life. Every day you show up at Kirby and to life, you are preparing. Every time you practice kindness, love, and thoughtfulness towards someone, you are preparing. Every time you read a book and put it in the work to grow your mind or listen to a different point of view with an open mind, you are preparing. And to be really, really good at auditioning, honestly, you just have to be yourself. Just be who you are and believe in yourself. I always tell the students to go in with confidence. Be real and honest. Be the real, authentic you, which is pretty great already. So just relax. The best auditions happen when you are relaxed. Take it easy. Take in the moment. So let's just say you are cast as the employee, the roommate, the friend, the boyfriend, girlfriend. You get into that class you really want with that great professor, etc. You are now part of the company, as we call it in theater. Relish in the moment. Take it in. The script will start to unfold. Now, you will need to work on the set, the lighting, the stage directions, from the smallest things like decorating your room, getting your books, planning your schedule, to the bigger things like choosing a career path, working out what you truly want your future to look like. You will need to create the right blocking, which in theater is the director's plan movement for an actor. Well, you are the director and the actor. So this entails figuring out how to get to your classes or to the student union, your place of employment, that place where you plan to do volunteer work, etc. And don't be late for an entrance. Be respectful to the rest of the cast and don't be late for a cue. Be on time for classes. Show up to work on time. Always respect other people's time because timing is everything. So now you are cast, you need to start the character development, which you have already started. I know as an actor, you continue to develop the character all through the rehearsal process, even during the entire run of the play. The character is always developing and changing. You will have a plethora of performances, so you will be developing your character your whole life. The best or perfect characters in a play or a book are the imperfect characters, the ones who make mistakes, because they are more relatable. And it's nice to know that we're all human. No one likes someone who thinks they're perfect all the time. So go ahead and make mistakes. I dare you to fail because you will grow and create a much stronger character that way. Believe me, I've definitely made mistakes. I know, hard to believe, but it's true. You must remember that you are human, vulnerable and flawed. That is what makes you an endearing, lovable character. The endearing and lovable people that you are now. I know that I continue to learn and grow, and I know that each of you have touched my life in so many ways, and that has helped to develop my character. So now you must take the stage, and you may be a minor character, and in some instances, a lead in others. And although you won't always have the stage or the spotlight, you must remember that every character in the play of life is important, and they play a very specific role. In theater, we say there are no small parts. The play would not be complete or be able to go on without each and every character playing their part. So this is Act 1, and you're going on to Act 2. There is so much to discover in Act 2, so enjoy the ride. Take it slow, fail, succeed. I'm going on to my second act in Texas. Well, actually, it's probably my 20th act, or perhaps it's just a brand new play altogether with new characters to discover. I can't tell you what role you will get and what exactly you will need to go through to develop that character for success, or even what lines will be written. But remember, what happens between the lines is just as important as the lines themselves. I'm always telling my actors that what happens in the silence is just as important. What you do, I tell y'all, that's me practicing my Texas accent. Acting is reacting. So in order to react, you have to listen. And I'm here to tell you that listening is one of the most important skills you will ever learn. So live in the moment, listen to others, and don't be rushed into anything. So since someone dared me to take a theater class, and this is the journey I am on, which led me to y'all here at Kirby and soon to be Texas, I dare you to take a theater class. I dare you to take an astronomy class or programming or an art or dance class, any class you might not have thought about. I dare you to make friends, to discover new things. I dare you to fail, and I dare you to get back up when you fall. I dare you to love. I dare you to go out and do great things. I dare you to break out in song because, as I always say, all the world is a musical. And please don't listen to those critics, because if you know you are prepared and that you've done the best job you possibly can, and you are continuing to develop your character, then it's just one person's opinion. And if you ever need a positive review, look me up, because I'll give you one. I am proud of all of you. As Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. Well, this speech is my applause and standing ovation to your Act 1. So seniors, until we meet again, you got this. And I hope you break a leg in Act 2. Crying. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnay. The next part of our program continues the tradition of a song for the seniors and their parents. We'll be playing a recorded song for you, and they'll be singing Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
You love her, you really, really love her.
Just 1 second while we straighten out our technical difficulties. Inventing new ways to be a video producer has been an extra skill of Kirby School.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Just call my name, I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough
To keep me from getting to you, babe. Remember the day I set you free. I told you you could always count on me, babe. From that day on, I made a vow. I'll be there when you want me, some way, somehow. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe. Oh no, darling. Oh, there on the double just as fast as I can. Don't you know that there ain't no mountain high enough? Ain't no valley low enough? Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe. Ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from you. Ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from you. Ain't no mountain keeps me from you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to the seniors for picking an uplifting song. I imagine we're going to be on a roller coaster of tears today. All right, moving right along. Our next two speakers are our co-valedictorian. Please join me in welcoming the first of the two, Mr. Anthony Aria.
Hello, Kirby class of 2020, family, friends, teachers, and staff. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been a strange year, a year we'll never forget, and not just because we're graduating. A year of uncomfortable isolation, long Zoom calls, and a promless spring. It's not only a time for change and transition for us, but we may also be in the midst of a transitional point for the entire country. Social media has changed everything about our world and how we communicate. America's injustices can no longer be ignored. Our digital landscape has enabled us to capture and see firsthand systematic problems that have been silenced and left unaddressed for generations. But now it's up to our generation to change them. Every person is a citizen of the world, and it's time to embrace a global community. We can no longer just think of our local communities and immediate surroundings around us, but we must take the time to understand what's happening to our fellow people in other parts of the country and act appropriately. That's why the critical thinking skills we've learned at Kirby are now more important than ever. Kirby's extraordinary teachers have instructed us with grace, compassion, humanity, and intelligence. We've learned so much from them and from our fellow students. Kirby has taught us to be inclusive and understanding of people from all different backgrounds and perspectives. And throughout our high school career years, we've learned the skills to be thoughtful leaders. As the class of 2020 moves on to a new stage in our life, no matter what endeavors we decide to spend our time with, we can always set forth our ideals and help push our generation towards a better future. Throughout history, some of the greatest champions of global peace and social justice have been songwriters. Woody Guthrie promised to pass peace around and cross hands of every hue. John Lennon imagined a brotherhood of man. Bob Dylan asked, how many deaths will it take until too many people have died? And Cat Stevens dreamed of a peace train. I've written a song for Kirby's 2020 graduating class I'm going to play for you guys. As we might feel sadness and missing out on some of the traditions associated with senior year, know that we will meet again and celebrate past and future accomplishments. Once you've been in Santa Cruz, you always find your way back. You travel down the road, but you never forget where you start. The road may seem a little stranger today. Gravel on the pavement in a rusted window frame. We've heard fighting words and seen cold-hearted ways, but love's got a way to shine a light through the haze. Take my hand, take my heart. You travel down the road, but never forget where you start. You take my hand, you take my heart. You're fighting for a world, but you're never gonna forget where you start. I'm staring out my window, thinking how could it be? All the folks I know, they don't think like me. The world you leave is the kind you put forth. You know, a child don't change till he sees the hope he's looking for. We're taking my hand, taking my heart. You travel down the road, but never forget where you start. You take my hand, you take my heart. You're fighting for a world, but gonna have to do your part. You find yourself at the end of the line, at a fork in the road that you've been seeing for some time. But the hardest part of letting go is the people you meet and the faces you know. Take my hand, take my heart. You travel down the road, but you never forget where you start. Take my hand, you take my heart. You're fighting for a world, but gonna have to do your part. Take my hand, you take my heart. You travel down the road, but never forget where you start. You take my hand, you take my heart. You're fighting for a world, but gonna have to do your part. Peace and love.
Thank you, Anthony. Now, please join me in welcoming our second valedictorian, Margaret Melcher.
Picture this. The sun breaks over the horizon line of the Sierras, shining down upon Monarch Lake. Campers and chaperones emerge from their tents, but 5 boys remain sprawled out on the big rock by the water, too tired from yesterday's exhaustive backpacking trip to get up. The scene is tranquil, still. And then, without warning, something flies across the campsite. Like a tumbleweed, Anthony's empty tent somersaults down the hill and towards the lake. Some of us move as if to catch it, but we already know it's too late. What I certainly did not expect in that moment was for John, who had already been in his bathing suit, to willingly dive into the freezing water that had chunks of ice floating in it upstream, swim out to the middle of the lake, and drag the tent back to shore like a lifeguard saving a child. The tent was also open this entire time, rapidly filling and practically dragging John underwater with it. Even though this was 3 years after I'd first enrolled at Kirby on our senior retreat in Mineral King, I was shocked by the sacrifices my classmates were willing to make for each other. Not only were they eager to help one another at a cost to themselves, but as we all sat around eating our instant oatmeal, we were able to laugh together at the image of John, nearly hypothermic on Monarch Lake, and to tease Anthony for leaving his tent completely empty and unstaked on a windy night. John's selflessness highlights what, for me, is Kirby's defining attribute. The environment we create pushes everybody to be nice all the time. I started speaking up more in classes each year, finally confident that my peers wouldn't make fun of me for expressing my ideas less than eloquently or for saying something flat out incorrect. I went from having sweaty palms at the idea of raising my hand to being able to get up in front of my public speaking class and present a PowerPoint I had never seen as an exercise in presentation skills, one that ended up being about cultural turf management. Motal. Liza would bring tubs of pasta into Gov class to share. Dan would offer hugs anytime you saw him in the hallway. And both Allie and Caroline have discovered that Kirby teachers remain incredibly nice even after you've hit their car. Somehow, Assassin, a game that made us all hunt each other for sport, brought our grade even closer together, uniting us over study hall war funerals or the panic of leaving your spoon in the classroom on a break. Even moments that didn't seem so funny at the time, like fearing for Orlando's life or having your phone go off in Miss Olson's class, are tinged with Kirby's supportive and uplifting atmosphere. There's obviously a huge cloud hanging over our ceremony today, as the sweeping pandemic has affected all of our lives in ways that I can't begin to understand. Part of the reason high school feels like it passed so fast is that my time with my friends and teachers was cut short. I didn't know my last day of high school was my last day of high school until 2 weeks later, and I'm sure we would all prefer to be attending an in-person ceremony right now. But I've seen my peers adapt to their circumstances time and time again, and I know we will have ample opportunities to put that adaptability into practice in the years to come. Leia and I have already forged ahead in the realm of distance learning, completing our entire city planning project on SimCity and reinforcing my confidence in our class's creativity. People always speak of the uncertainty that we experience as we breach the chasm between high school and whatever comes after high school, but it's different in this context. This unprecedented amount of disease, economic struggle, and political unrest layers a new level of anxiety on top of the chaos of becoming an adult. It's made it clearer than ever before that nobody truly knows what's going on, even if they pretend to. The pandemic has put us all on the same level. This is an opportunity to be equalized, a time to recognize that nobody has all the answers and to venture into the unknown, leaning on one another. That is not to say that we have to look on the bright side all the time. There's no doubt that the past few months have been full of anger and disappointment. I wanted to go to prom and watch the sunset surrounded by my friends and sit in Peace United Church, moving the tassel on my cap from right to left in real time, not watching my classmates do it on 40 different tiny little squares on my computer screen. But that doesn't change that I've built lasting connections with some truly incredible people. I've had the honor of learning from teachers who have completely altered my worldview year after year. I've watched members of the Kirby community create virtual birthday boards and mailable yearbook signatures, and I'm reminded that before this virus took hold, we had some beautiful things that have not disappeared. A terrifying crack in the earth lies in front of us, but we can look back upon what we had and take that with us as we jump. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Our final student speaker is the recipient of the Connor Cockerham Award. This award is named for an alum who lost his life to melanoma shortly after graduating from Kirby. Connor was the embodiment of inclusivity. Even as a senior, he had friends in every single grade level. We chose to create the Connor Cockerham Award for the junior class to be able to recognize the classmate who brought joy to the lives of others. Last year, this class chose Dan Chang for this honor, and I wholeheartedly agree with their choice. Please join me in welcoming our next speaker, the Connor Cockerham Award recipient, Dan Chang.
Good afternoon. Class of 2020. Oh my goodness, we did it. Whew. That feels pretty good. We've made so many fun memories, and we've grown so much as individuals and as a group. But before I dive into talking about this amazing senior class, I want to talk about Connor Cockerham. There's a quote that I think summarizes this really well. Connor Cockerham, a member of the class of 2012, was a beloved Kirby student whose notable gifts to the Kirby community were his warmth and friendship. As his mother described him, he dined on joy, and it was this glowing spirit that drew people to his company. Connor tragically passed from melanoma in 2014 at the age of 20. We honor Connor and his spirit through this award. The reason I'm telling you about this today is to first help honor Connor and his struggle, and also because every one of us embodies Connor's spirit. Every single one of us could have easily gotten this award. I want to tell you a story about friendship, support, care, fun, and of course, adventure. I want to tell you the story of this year's homecoming, which was by far the best Kirby dance I've ever been to. For me, the story starts when Dylan McVoy offered to give me a ride to the dance. We were prepping in the car, listening to absolute bops of tunes, Animal Spirits, Love Never Felt So Good, September. Homecoming itself was also just an absolute blast. The seniors made a giant group in the center where we were all dancing, laughing, and just having a really fun time. After the dance, a lot of us wanted to hang out still, so we decided that we should go to the beach and then we should go bowling. So we make it to the beach, and we're pretty far away from the main entrance. And there's also a cliff that separates Seabright Beach and the Boardwalk Beach. And a couple of us think, well, why don't we just walk down this cliff and try to climb down the cliff into Seabright Beach? Because that sounds like a great idea. No. No, it was not a good idea. The cliff was too high for you to jump down safely, so you had to climb down it. But it was a harder climb, and we had less experienced climbers, and we had like 25 of us, and it was pitch black out. Needless to say, it was kind of a disaster. We had people shining flashlights at all angles to try to cover the wall in light. We had people who were more experienced climbers holding on to the wall, trying to give directions to those people. We had people who had just finished climbing below, ready to catch somebody if they fell. It was quite the challenge, but after 30 minutes, we finally managed to get everyone down from the wall, and some of us were very prepared for the beach, so we dived straight into the freezing cold ocean, which is so exhilarating. Afterwards, we went to the bowling alley, and the bowling alley was specifically important because that night was also Cole and Wyatt's birthday. And we couldn't just not celebrate Cole and Wyatt's birthday. That's like not a possibility here. So Eli Brandt contacts Cole and Wyatt's mom about getting a cake and getting Cole and Wyatt to the bowling alley because they weren't there at the time. Sadly though, Cole and Wyatt were both sick, and getting the cake was just so hard. I'm still disappointed about this to this day. Cole did eventually manage to come to the bowling alley, and those of us who were there had a great time bowling and bonding. Like I mentioned earlier, I think this story highlights these themes: friendship, support, care, fun, and adventure. Friendship, support, and care, from Dylan being so willing to give me a ride. I live nowhere near Dylan, and he went out of his way to take me from my house to the dance, to building that entire support network. We cared for each other so much in that moment. For those people who couldn't climb as easily, we didn't leave them behind. We cared for our fellow classmates and our community. To trying to throw Cole and Wyatt a surprise birthday party, you can't tell me that doesn't take some level of care and friendship, even if it didn't go through. To the fun and adventure and the pure excitement of the dance and beach and bowling. We all have stories from these past years. We all have so many stories and memories. Connor Cockerham, he dined on joy, and the joy comes from all of these moments, the big ones and the small ones. I cherish the memory of sitting in Leia Cresa's loft playing Civ 5. There's nothing exciting about that memory, but I have so much joy in that memory, just as much joy as the giant memories. So as we move on from high school, we can reflect back on all these amazing stories over the years. We can see reoccurring themes throughout too. We can remember the good stories, and we can laugh about the bad ones. Class of 2020, you are all so wonderful and kind and amazing and unique and fun and creative and genuine. I'm so honored to have spent high school and to graduate with all of you. Every single one of you deserves the absolute best that life has to offer. And even though we're living in uncertain times, wild times, crazy times, we still have so many stories and memories to make. We have so much to learn, so many new friends to meet and have fun with, so many new people to support and care for, so many new people to support and care for us, so many adventures to go on. Today is a turning point. It's a day to reflect on the past and to look towards the future. And I believe we all have very bright futures. Congratulations, class of 2020, and thank you.
Thank you, Dan. That story was so perfect for respecting Connor's memory. Thank you for that. Our next speaker was chosen by the seniors to speak to them today. Mr. Jackson is single-handedly responsible for quadrupling the average number of Kirby students to go on to calculus. His accessibility, patience, and true mathematical genius is inspiring to Kirby students. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Chris Jackson.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning and welcome graduates on this incredibly special day. Graduation day is always one of my favorite days of the year, filled with all of its laughs, tears, hugs, and pictures. To the students of the class of 2020, I would like you to take a second to think about the people who had the biggest impact on your life and have helped support you, along the journey to get to this day. I imagine most of those people you just thought about are here involved in this event in one way or another. They might be smiling at you from their computer screen or sitting right next to you in your living room. So to all those people, your friends, significant others, classmates, teachers, grandparents, and especially to your parents, welcome to Kirby School's 2020 graduation. And to you, the class of 2020, congratulations, you made it. I'm extremely honored you chose me to deliver this speech this year. However, in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense why you chose me this year of all years, seeing as how I've been preaching the importance of baking your own bread, growing and preserving your own food, and the benefits of having a well-stocked emergency closet for years. In all seriousness, I do feel a strong connection to your particular class. You're made up of some of the most friendly, welcoming, and generous young people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. It was wonderful getting to know all of you over the years. Amongst you, there are some incredible performers, athletes, writers, mathematicians, artists, scientists, the best boys volleyball class in the history of the school, and just generally all around kind, warm people. And of course, your class is the one that convinced me to start watching the Great British Baking Show, a life-changing event for which I could never possibly repay you. Furthermore, your class is also unique because of the unfortunate fact that this class finished their high school career in some of the strangest possible circumstances, in the midst of a pandemic, the likes of which the world has not seen for 100 years. As much as I and I'm sure many of you would like to think about something other than the pandemic affecting the world right now, I do believe it's important to acknowledge what we've been through. This is not the way you deserve to end your time in high school. You got dealt a really bad hand, and it's truly unfortunate. If there's any doubt about the seriousness of the situation we're in right now, there's something you might find interesting. My wife's grandmother lives in Moscow, Russia, and recently turned 83. She was born in Leningrad in the 1930s. In her lifetime, she experienced some truly challenging times. World War II, the Cold War, collapse of the Soviet Union. Yet she told us that she had never imagined living through something as crazy, upsetting, and disconcerting as the pandemic facing the world right now. Something I've learned from this pandemic is, whether you're a fan of the subject of history or not, that being a part of history can be terrible. That's exactly what we're in the midst of right now. So that leads to the obvious question, what do I do now? The typical graduation cliche is to follow your dreams. I believe the contrary approach is equally, if not more important. Be prepared to be flexible. Your dreams may change, so be ready to latch on to something else should it arise. Don't be so blinded by a singular goal that you miss out on great opportunities. The world's changing so fast, and there are so many exciting new prospects for you to pursue coming forth every day. And if you don't have any big dreams for the future right now, don't worry. It's not fair to think you're going to know what you'll do at this point in your life. You're not supposed to when you're that age. You'll be a completely different person 10 years from now, even 1 year from now. You're likely a far different person than you were back in January. And if you find it hard and scary sometimes to open yourself up to these new possibilities, some of my former students may recall me tangentially referencing Kurt Gödel, the famous Austrian mathematician and logician of the early 20th century. He proved the incompleteness theorem, one of the most astounding, confusing, and mind-blowing theorems ever proven. I also find it oddly inspiring. Essentially, the theorem he proved showed that there are an uncountably infinite number of truths, but a countably infinite number of truths that can be proven. In simpler terms, what he showed was that every time someone proves one new statement, it leads to literally an infinite number of other truths, the vast majority of which are impossible to prove. So any idea you have that you'll ever end your education, toss that right out the window. So please, never stop learning. Stephen Hawking is credited with saying, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. Don't be satisfied with what you know right now. There's so much out there to learn. Remember, there are literally infinite truths out there waiting to be discovered. You'll be prepared to take advantage of more of those great opportunities as they arise. if you broaden your horizons and do your best to learn everything you can from a wide range of disciplines. Sometimes those endeavors may end in failure, but as another great thinker once said, the greatest teacher failure is. That's Yoda, if you're not into Star Wars. Also, based on Gödel's results, experimentation may be necessary because virtually anything and everything may be impossible to prove in a method based purely on logic. Your education is more important now than ever. I don't mean just the education you get from pieces of paper with your names on them like you'll receive today, which are very important, but the education you receive from your everyday experiences, travels, and conversations. In today's world, mathematical and scientific facts are passed off merely as beliefs by many visible figures in the public, political venues, and the news. So unfortunately, it's up to you to be able to make sense of the situation. Knowing if you are or are not being lied to might be the very most important skill you can have moving forward in your life. There are many huge problems in the world today. Poverty, climate change, racism, sexism, unemployment, xenophobia, pollution, and a general sense of divisiveness, which seems to be growing without end. It makes the world seem scary, especially since it seems like your generation is left to pick up the pieces. But if you want the world to be better, you can make it so with small actions you take every day. Say thank you, drive less, speak up when you see something, treat people with respect, and eat and shop more responsibly. Even if you may not see the results, it does work. You can be role models to both older and younger generations. I've been inspired to see how responsible your generation is in your daily decisions regarding the environment, climate change, and the ethical treatment of animals. Remember, last year's Time Person of the Year, a role model to millions around the world, Greta Thunberg, is the same age as all of you. This current pandemic, like any other challenging situation, will come to an end. A fact to which many of you can attest, seeing as how many of you were enrolled in one of my classes this year, and those all mercifully came to an end as well. And this brings me to how one of those particular classes ended this semester, one of my fondest memories of the year. The last day we were holding classes together at Kirby before beginning distance learning, there was about 10 minutes left in my multivariable calculus class, and I was trying to think, how can I possibly maximize these next few minutes? What are the most important things I could do right now? At the time, it was still very unclear how long this would all last and whether we'd be back in the building this year or not. And then a student suggested, if this might be the last 10 minutes we have in the same room together this year, let's just play cards. That's exactly what we did, and it was awesome. Looking back, I realized how much wiser that student was than me. During the difficult and uncertain times, he prioritized our human connections with one another, and that was much more important than solving an integral on the board could ever be. Personally, the main thing I've taken away from the lockdowns and the quarantines is to appreciate those fleeting moments. So take advantage of every chance you get to be with the ones you care about and do the things you love. I know how I would have felt if I had to spend 3 months being around my family all day at 18 years old, but one day you will wish you had more time together. So please, thank your parents or guardians, thank your siblings, thank your relatives, teachers, and everyone else who supported you throughout your journey to get here. Finally, when you can, come back to Kirby, give us all a hug so we can have a proper goodbye. Everyone remaining here will miss you a lot. I know I will. So congratulations again to the class of 2020. Best of luck with wherever life takes you. Get that emergency closet going, be good to each other, and never stop learning. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I'm still keeping it together. Our final speaker today is a special honor. Miss Olson is retiring from full-time teaching this year, and what a last year it has been. When I announced Miss Olson's retirement to our alumni, I was told by several that her commitment to their growth had been life-changing. Miss Olson has given tirelessly to our students, and I'm so grateful that our seniors elected to hear from her today. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Kirsten Olson.
Many years ago, with a foolish yet buoyant confidence that those who know me will recognize all too well, I volunteered to cook the meal for the Temple Bethel Community Seder. For those not familiar with this kind of event, a Seder is a Passover feast with a lot of special ceremonial foods that are required, like a lamb bone and a roasted egg, lots of wine, Hebrew prayers, traditional songs, desperate attempts to keep small children engaged, and the retelling in some form of the story of the Exodus. It's a time when family gathers, and it's usually held on the first night and sometimes again on the second night of Passover. And in my family and in a lot of others, it's a time for talking about big ideas: slavery and freedom, justice and oppression, history and renewal, and the obligations we have to each other. The synagogue Seder is on the second night, and it involves cooking for as many as 200 people. So on this occasion, I spent the whole first day of Passover in the temple kitchen, prepping food with the help of my young children. As the hours raced on, we realized that our first night Seder at home was not going to feature my braised brisket and homemade matzo ball soup. Long after nightfall, we climbed exhausted into our car, knowing that the meal itself at the heart of our home ritual would have to be pretty basic. But it was also one of those wild, wet, stormy Santa Cruz Mountains nights. Every road home had a fallen tree across it, and it took us over 2 hours to get home while we waited for them to remove a big fallen tree from Graham Hill Road. As the time passed, we realized that even the ritual was going to have to be radically stripped down. So we had a long, thoughtful discussion about what we absolutely had to include to make it a real Seder. By the way, I later talked to a rabbi. She told us we got the wrong answer, but that's beside the point. When we finally got home, we threw together a quick approximation of the required foods for the Seder plate. We happened to have exactly 1 lamb chop and 1 egg in the fridge, which we interpreted as a Passover miracle. We lit the candles, said some prayers. By this time, it was close to midnight. The kids were exhausted. We had to get up first thing in the morning and go back down to Aptos to get ready to cook for 200 people. So we did the briefest of brief summaries of the story: slaves, God, Moses, plagues, Pharaoh, Red Sea, skip the hard part about wandering in the desert for 40 years trying to put together a functioning society, and tucked the kids into bed. But I realized later that we'd already done the story part, the talking and the unpacking of the symbols in the car, as we asked each other, what's essential to make this happen? What we did when we got home, therefore, we did with an intense focus, with what in Hebrew is called kavanah, intention or intentionality. Everything we preserved in that little Seder had kavanah, and it made a difference. I've been to a lot of Seders over the years, and it's that Seder that I will never, ever forget. It's that Seder that made me ask the question, what's absolutely necessary to make this ceremony real? And here we are online, trying to make this ceremony today feel real. What we need to do is make you feel that this happened in real life to you, rather than just on TV to somebody who looks like you. The typical graduation has a predictable checklist. Relatives come in from out of town. You get dressed up in a costume that you've never worn before in your life and will rarely wear again, a polyester pastiche of the daily garb of scholars in medieval universities, symbolizing their quasi-clerical status. You fuss over which side the tassel goes on. You mingle with the relatives who express pride and take way too many pictures, and with your friends, lingering in that poignant moment where the feeling that something important is ending is drowning out the feeling that something important is beginning. Pomp and circumstance plays. You process, walking in a way that you never have before and rarely will again, with everyone craning their necks to see you and again taking way too many pictures. You sit, you stand, you stand, you sit. At Kirby, the chamber choir sings to you and the alumni welcome you into their ranks. People make speeches filled with good advice. You stand, you walk, your name gets called, you get a diploma, you freeze for a photo of the handshake as for just a moment, the attention of everyone in the room is focused on you. People cry. I myself always cry at Kirby graduations. Wait for it, it will happen. You are declared to be graduates. There is a mass shower of polyester and cardboard replicas of medieval clerical headwear, and you try to avoid having one of them land in your eye. You go to the reception, eat something, talk with friends and teachers, pose for more pictures, and hope your relatives don't embarrass you too much. It's a blur. It's the next day when you wake up that you know you've gone through that door, and the feeling of something important beginning begins to drown out the feeling that something important has just ended. A lot of people have worked really hard to preserve as much as possible of that typical graduation checklist. But a graduation isn't just a checklist. It's also a physical experience. The dress, the crowd, the choreography, Marnay doing this, the tension, the emotional catharsis. And some of that physical experience we just simply can't replicate. COVID-19 is our storm-felled tree across the road. But this graduation is the one that we will never, ever forget. For the rest of our lives, we'll own this crazy, sorrowful, precarious, hopeful, upside down year. Yes, that was a Stranger Things reference. Never, ever forget what it feels like to share something with the whole world and know that the world can change when love and justice call loudly enough to us. And you've probably already devoted more thought to this rite of passage about what's salvageable and what's missing and what that means than most graduates ever do. You're bringing your kavana to this ceremony probably more than any class in Kirby's history. I want to focus that intention even more, because if I can't give you an in-person graduation, maybe with your participation in a cheesy imaginative exercise, I can at least give you a moment of shared emotional catharsis. You can close your eyes or not, but I want you to imagine that you're in a home where you've lived for 1 year or many. That could be a place you've really lived. It could be the Kirby building. It could be a space that represents who you've been in your high school years. Just take a moment to visualize it as a physical space. You've had happy times there. Sometimes you've been sad or angry, but it's a place you know down to its smallest details. You have your favorite places to sit or read or daydream or play games or hang out with your friends. You know how the light falls. Oh, this is my classroom where the thing goes off if I don't move around enough. So anyway, you know how the light falls or turns off, and you know the views from the windows because you've been at home there. And today is moving day. The last day you're going to walk out through the front door as a person who lives there. You can always go back, but it will be different because you'll be a visitor who lives somewhere else now. Somewhere maybe bigger or more exciting, but somewhere different. I want you to imagine that you're ready to take that last step. The door is open. The air outside is balmy and lightly breezy, and the light is golden and welcoming. Inside, the home is softly dark with all the lights out. Without looking behind you, you can feel the presence of everyone who cares about you. Your friends, your family, your teachers, Ms. Olson cried at a graduation, check, your neighbors, all those people whose loving intention lives inside of you and wishes you well. They are all with you, and you know you will take them with you when you take that last step. We are all here, holding you close and holding you up across the physical distance between us. And some part of us all will go with you once you step across that threshold and become whoever you will be next. 3, 2, 1. Step out and shut the door behind you. The place that was your home is now a part of your past, and every other place in the world is now potentially part of your future. Thank you very much, graduates, for allowing me to be part of that step with you. I will never, ever forget it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I gotta take one quick breath here. Before I close our program, I would like to invite you all to stick around afterward to enjoy the artwork of our AP Art students. We usually have a slideshow in the fireside lounge of the church where graduation is held, but today we have the opportunity to deliver these beautiful pieces of work directly to your home. I hope you will enjoy them. Later today, our graduates will receive their diplomas in a car parade that will be live streamed at 4 p.m. I hope you will join us for that special moment as well. Now for the moment these students have worked so hard for. It's time to advance our seniors to the status of alumni. These are your last seconds of high school, friends. Are you ready? Please sit up straight and adjust your tassel to the right front of your cap. By the power vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Kirby School, I now pronounce you graduates. Please move your tassel from the right to the left. You are officially done with high school. Congratulations, class of 2020.
Woo!
Yeah, hoot and holler. We are so proud of you. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
and say that?